When the past walks through your door, the lunch rush at Harbor Lights Diner was finally slowing down. Jasmine Brooks wiped down table 7 for the third time that afternoon, her back aching from 6 straight hours on her feet. Outside the window, Charleston's historic waterfront sparkled in the September sun, boats bobbing gently in the harbor. She had memorized every detail of this view over the past 3 years, the same way she had memorized the face of the man she never stopped loving. "Could you pass the salt?" The voice stopped her heart. Deep, smooth, with that slight rasp at the end of each sentence. Jasmine's hand froze on the table, the cloth falling from her fingers. She knew that voice. She had heard it in her dreams every night for 10 years, whispered against her skin in memories that refused to fade, calling her name in moments of joy and passion that seemed like they belonged to someone else's life. Slowly, she turned around. Table 12. The corner booth, with the best view of the water. And sitting there, looking at his menu with casual indifference, was Daniel Westfield. He looked different. Older, obviously. The boyish softness had been replaced by sharp angles and confident masculinity. His dark hair was shorter, styled professionally instead of falling carelessly over his forehead the way she remembered. He wore an expensive suit, navy blue, with a crisp white shirt, no tie. The kind of outfit that screamed success and sophistication, but his eyes were the same. Storm gray, intense even when relaxed, the kind of eyes that seemed to see straight through to your soul. "Miss," he said again, looking up at her with polite expectation. "The salt." He didn't recognize her. Jasmine felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. 10 years ago, Daniel Westfield had looked at her like she was his entire universe. He had traced every line of her face with his fingers, memorizing her like she was the most important thing he would ever know. He had promised her forever on a beach at midnight, with waves crashing around them and stars bearing witness to their love, and now he was looking at her like she was just another waitress in another diner in another forgettable town. "Yes, of course," Jasmine managed, her voice barely steady. She reached for the salt shaker on the neighboring table, but her hands were shaking so badly that it slipped from her grasp. The glass container hit the floor and shattered, white crystals exploding across the wooden boards like tiny diamonds. "Oh no, I'm so sorry," she stammered, dropping to her knees to gather the pieces. Her eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. Not here. Not now. Not in front of him when he didn't even remember who she was. "Hey, it's okay," Daniel said, and suddenly he was there beside her, kneeling on the floor, helping her pick up the larger shards. Accidents happen. No harm done. His hand brushed against hers as they both reached for the same piece of glass. The touch sent electricity shooting up Jasmine's arm, a physical memory her body couldn't forget, even if his mind had. She jerked her hand back like she'd been burned. Daniel looked at her with concern. "Are you all right? You didn't cut yourself, did you?" "I'm fine," Jasmine said quickly, standing up so fast she felt dizzy. "I'll get someone to clean this up properly, and I'll bring you a new salt shaker, and take your order. What would you like?" She was babbling. She never babbled. But having Daniel Westfield 3 feet away from her, smelling like expensive cologne, and looking at her with those eyes that once knew every secret of her heart, was destroying every defense she had built over the last decade. The man who forgot, Daniel settled back into his seat, studying the menu again. "The crab cake sandwich sounds good. And sweet tea, please." Of course he would order that. It had been his favorite 10 years ago, back when they spent every afternoon at the old pier, eating from food trucks and talking about their dreams. Jasmine had teased him about being such a tourist, ordering sweet tea like he was trying too hard to fit into Southern culture. He had laughed and said that some things were worth trying too hard for. She wondered if he still believed that. She wondered if he remembered any of it. "Coming right up," Jasmine said, scribbling the order on her pad, even though she would remember it perfectly without writing it down. She would remember everything about this moment for the rest of her life, just like she remembered everything about their last night together, as she walked toward the kitchen. Her coworker Monica intercepted her near the coffee station. "Girl, you okay?" "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," Jasmine lied, the words automatic after years of practice. That guy at table 12 keeps looking at you, Monica said, glancing over her shoulder. And he's gorgeous. You know him or something? Or something. Jasmine forced a smile. Never seen him before in my life, it was the truth. In a way, she had never seen this version of Daniel Westfield, the polished businessman with empty eyes and no recognition in his face. The Daniel she knew had been a college student with big dreams and bigger heart, working 2 jobs to pay his tuition while taking architecture classes because he wanted to design buildings that made people feel at home. That Daniel had kissed her in the rain and promised to build her a house with windows facing the sunrise. That Daniel had loved her with a fierce intensity that made her believe in fairy tales. This Daniel was a stranger wearing a familiar face. Fragments of yesterday. Jasmine delivered his food 20 minutes later, her hands steady now, through sheer force of will. She had cried briefly in the walk-in freezer, letting the cold air shock her system back into control. She had splashed water on her face and reapplied her lipstick. She could do this. She had survived 10 years without him. She could survive 30 minutes of serving him lunch. Here you go, she said, setting the plate down carefully. 1 crab cake sandwich. Can I get you anything else? This looks perfect. Thank you, Daniel said, picking up his fork. Then he paused, looking up at her with a slight frown. Have we met before? You seem familiar somehow.
Yes.
Jasmine's heart stopped, then started again, beating so hard she thought he must be able to hear it. I don't think so, she said carefully. I've been working here for 3 years. Maybe you've been in before. No, I just moved back to Charleston last month, Daniel said, still studying her face with that puzzled expression. But there's something about your voice. Like I've heard it before in a dream or something. He laughed, shaking his head. Sorry, that sounds ridiculous. Dreams can feel very real sometimes, Jasmine said softly. More real than reality, she thought. More honest than memory. Do you believe in that? Daniel asked, seeming genuinely curious. That dreams mean something? That they're trying to tell us things we've forgotten? Jasmine looked at him for a long moment, at this man who had once been everything to her, at these eyes that used to light up when they saw her, at these hands that had held hers and promised never to let go. I believe, she said slowly, that our hearts remember things our minds try to forget. I believe that love leaves marks on our souls that can't be erased, even when everything else is taken away. And I believe that some connections are strong enough to survive anything, even time and distance and loss. Daniel stared at her, his fork frozen halfway to his mouth. Something flickered in his eyes, there and gone so fast she might have imagined it. Recognition. Memory? Hope? That's beautiful, he said quietly. And sad. Most true things are both, Jasmine replied. A phone buzzed, breaking the moment. Daniel pulled it from his pocket, glanced at the screen, and his expression hardened. I need to take this. Excuse me? He answered the call as he stood, walking toward the exit. Richard, I told you I'd handle it. No, I don't need you to come here. Because I said so. Jasmine watched him through the window, pacing on the sidewalk with tense shoulders and frustrated gestures. Richard, his brother, the man who had destroyed everything 10 years ago by lying to both of them, by convincing Daniel that their relationship had never existed, by paying Jasmine to disappear, and then telling Daniel she had taken the money and run. She had never taken that money. She had torn up the check and thrown it in Richard's face. But by then, Daniel was already gone, whisked away to recover from his accident in a private facility where Richard controlled every visitor, every phone call, every piece of information that reached his vulnerable younger brother. By the time Daniel was released, he believed Jasmine had been nothing but a summer fling who had tried to trap him with fake emotions and manipulation. Richard had made sure of that, and Jasmine had been left alone, heartbroken and pregnant, with nothing but memories and a future that had shattered like that salt shaker on the diner floor. The weight of secrets. Daniel came back inside 10 minutes later, his jaw tight with barely controlled anger. He threw cash on the table, more than enough to cover the meal and a generous tip. I'm sorry, I have to go, he said. Business emergency. I hope everything works out, Jasmine said. Meaning it, despite everything. He looked at her again, that puzzled expression returning. "What's your name?" "I didn't catch it." She should lie. She should give him a fake name and let him walk away. It would be safer, cleaner, less painful for both of them. "Jasmine," she said instead. "My name is Jasmine Brooks." Something crossed his face. A shadow of something, a ghost of recognition that disappeared before it could fully form. "Jasmine," he repeated slowly, like he was tasting the word. "That's a beautiful name." "Thank you. I'll come back," he said suddenly. "Tomorrow, maybe?" The food was excellent. "We'll be here," Jasmine said. Her heart breaking and mending and breaking again all at once. She watched him leave. Watched him climb into a sleek black car that probably cost more than she made in 2 years. Watched him drive away without looking back. Monica appeared at her elbow. Okay, something definitely happened there. The way he was looking at you? "Girl, that man is interested." "He doesn't know me," Jasmine said quietly. "Then introduce yourself properly," Monica suggested with a grin. "When he comes back tomorrow, give him your number." "What's the worst that could happen?" "The worst that could happen?" Jasmine almost laughed. The worst had already happened 10 years ago when Daniel's car had skidded on a wet road and crashed into a tree. When he had woken up with no memory of their summer together. When Richard had seized the opportunity to erase her from his brother's life like she had never existed. The worst was that Daniel would remember. That he would realize what they had lost. That he would have to live with the knowledge that he had a daughter he had never met. A child who asked about her father and deserved answers Jasmine couldn't give. That night. After her shift ended, Jasmine drove home to the small house she rented on the edge of town. She unlocked the door quietly, trying not to wake anyone, but the babysitter was still up, reading on the couch. "Mrs. Patterson, how was she today?" "Perfect as always," the elderly woman said with a warm smile. "Did her homework without complaining, ate all her vegetables, and went to bed on time. She asked about you around 8, but I told her you'd be home soon." "Thank you so much," Jasmine said, paying her and walking her to the door. When Mrs. Patterson left, Jasmine climbed the stairs to the second bedroom. She eased the door open and stood in the doorway, watching the sleeping figure in the bed. 9 years old, dark hair spread across the pillow. One arm thrown over the stuffed rabbit she had slept with since she was 2, Lily Westfield Brooks. The daughter Daniel didn't know existed. The little girl with her father's storm gray eyes and his smile and his kind heart. "Your daddy came to the diner today," Jasmine whispered into the darkness. "He didn't remember me, but he will. Somehow, I'll make him remember. Because you deserve to know your father, baby girl, and he deserves to know you." She closed the door softly and went to her own room, where a shoebox under the bed held all the evidence of what they had been. Photos from that magical summer. The napkin where Daniel had first written his phone number. The postcard he had sent her from a job site, promising to take her there someday, and at the bottom, the ultrasound image that had been taken 3 months after he disappeared. The first picture of Lily, nothing but a tiny blob on grainy film, but already loved more than Jasmine had thought possible. Tomorrow, Daniel would come back. And somehow, Jasmine would have to decide how much truth she was ready to tell, how much pain she was willing to revisit, how much hope she dared to hold on to, because the man who had broken her heart had just walked back into her life. And this time, she had more to lose than just herself. When yesterday becomes today, Daniel Westfield returned to Harbor Lights.
Diner.
The next day at exactly noon, Jasmine saw him through the window before he entered. Watched him pause outside like he was gathering courage for something more significant than lunch. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she smoothed down her apron and reminded herself to breathe. The door chimed. Their eyes met across the crowded room. This time, something different flickered in his expression. Not recognition exactly, but awareness. Like his subconscious was trying to tell him something his conscious mind refused to hear. "Table 12 again?" Jasmine asked, grabbing a menu she didn't need to grab. "If it's available," Daniel said. His voice was softer today, less businesslike. "I liked the view yesterday." Jasmine led him to the corner booth. Acutely aware of his presence behind her, the warmth of him. The familiar scent that made her remember summer nights and promises whispered in the dark. She set the menu down with hands that trembled slightly. "Can I start you with something to drink?" Professional, distant, safe, sweet tea, he said, then added, and maybe some answers. Jasmine froze. Answers. Daniel leaned forward, his gray eyes intense. I couldn't stop thinking about what you said yesterday. About hearts remembering what minds forget. About love leaving marks on souls. It felt like you were talking about something specific. Someone specific. I was just being philosophical, Jasmine said carefully. Were you? He studied her face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Because I went home last night and I couldn't sleep. I kept having these dreams. No, not dreams. Memories. At least they felt like memories, but they can't be real because I've never experienced them. Except they're so vivid, so detailed. Jasmine's mouth went dry. What kind of memories? A beach at sunset. A girl with dark hair laughing as waves crash around her ankles. Dancing in the rain outside some diner that looks a lot like this one. Kissing someone in the back of a pickup truck while stars explode overhead. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. And in every single one of these memories, the girl has your face, Jasmine. Your exact face. The diner noise faded to white noise. Jasmine gripped the edge of the table to steady herself. Daniel, you know me, he said. It wasn't a question. You knew me yesterday when I walked in. That's why you dropped the salt shaker. That's why you looked at me like I was a ghost. The summer that changed everything, Jasmine slid into the booth across from him, breaking every rule about fraternizing with customers. But this wasn't about rules anymore. This was about truth. 10 years overdue. We met here, she said quietly. 10 years ago this August. You were 22, just finished your junior year studying architecture at Clemson. You came to Charleston for a summer internship with Morrison and Associates. Daniel's breathing quickened. I remember the internship, but I don't remember you. You wouldn't, Jasmine continued, her voice steady, despite the tears threatening to fall. Because for months after we met, you had a car accident. You hit your head badly. When you woke up in the hospital, you had retrograde amnesia. The doctors said you lost about 6 months of memories. I know about the accident, Daniel said slowly. But my brother Richard told me I didn't lose anything important. Just some random summer working on projects that didn't matter. Is that what he told you? Bitterness crept into Jasmine's voice. That the summer didn't matter? What really happened? Jasmine took a deep breath. You came into this diner on your first day in Charleston. You ordered the crab cake sandwich and complained that it wasn't as good as the ones in Maryland. I told you that was blasphemy in South Carolina. You laughed and said you'd keep coming back until I convinced you otherwise. A slight smile tugged at Daniel's lips. Did I keep coming back? Every single day for 3 months, Jasmine said, allowing herself to smile at the memory. You'd show up for lunch and stay through my whole shift, doing your architecture drawings at this exact table. You said the light was perfect here. But really, I think you just wanted an excuse to talk to me. I can see why I would, Daniel said softly. We became friends first. You told me about your dreams of designing houses that felt like homes, buildings that made people happy just by being in them. I told you about wanting to go to college but not being able to afford it, about taking care of my grandmother who was sick. You never made me feel small for having smaller dreams.
8.
When did friendship become more? Jasmine's eyes grew distant, remembering. July 4th. There was a fireworks show at the harbor. You asked if I wanted to watch it with you after my shift. We sat on the beach, and when the first fireworks exploded, you looked at me instead of the sky. You said that nothing they could launch into the air could be more beautiful than the light reflecting in my eyes. That's a terrible line, Daniel said, but he was smiling. It was perfect, Jasmine corrected, because you meant it. You kissed me that night, and I knew my life would never be the same. For the next 2 months, we were inseparable. You met my grandmother. I met your friends from the internship. We made plans. What kind of plans? You were going to finish your degree? I was going to save money and start community college. You promised that when you graduated, you'd come back to Charleston. That we'd build a life here together, by the water, where we fell in love. Daniel sat back, his face pale. Why don't I remember any of this? Because your brother made sure you wouldn't, Jasmine said, anger finally breaking through her careful composure. Richard never approved of me. He thought I was beneath you, that I was using you for your money even though your family wasn't wealthy back then. He called me a distraction from your future. The accident that stole tomorrow, the night of your accident, Jasmine continued, her voice thick with emotion. We had a fight. Richard had come to town and confronted me. He told me to stay away from you, that I was ruining your life. When you found out, you were furious. You drove to my grandmother's house in the middle of a thunderstorm to tell me that nothing Richard said mattered, that you chose me. Daniel leaned forward, hanging on every word. You never made it. Your car hydroplaned on Highway 17. You hit a tree at 60 miles per hour. The doctors said you were lucky to be alive. Jasmine's voice cracked. I tried to see you in the hospital, but Richard had you transferred to a private facility in Atlanta. He told the staff I wasn't family, that I wasn't allowed to visit. He had no right, Daniel said, anger flashing in his eyes. Right. He had every right. He was your next of kin, and you were unconscious. By the time you woke up 3 weeks later, he had already poisoned your mind against me. He told you that our relationship was never serious, that I was just some girl you'd flirted with over the summer. He said that when you were recovering, I had come asking for money, claiming you'd promised to support me. He told you I was a con artist who tried to take advantage of your vulnerability. Daniel's hands clenched into fists. And I believed him? You had no reason not to, Jasmine said sadly. You couldn't remember me? Couldn't remember us? And Richard was very convincing. He even had fake text messages photoshopped to look like I'd been demanding money from you. That's sick, Daniel whispered. That's Richard, Jasmine replied. He wanted to control your life. Always has. And I was a threat to that control. For a long moment, they sat in silence. The lunch crowd bustled around them, but they existed in a bubble of their own, separated from the world by the weight of revealed truth. I want to remember, Daniel said finally. I need to remember. Not just because you're telling me this happened, but because when I look at you, something in me knows it's true. My heart recognizes you, even though my brain doesn't. The memories might never come back, Jasmine warned. The doctors told Richard that the specific memories you lost might be gone forever. Then help me make new ones, Daniel said, reaching across the table to take her hand. Help me fall in love with you again. Jasmine pulled her hand back gently. It's not that simple, Daniel. Why not? The secret she kept. Because you have a daughter, Jasmine wanted to say. Because I raised her alone for 9 years while you lived your life without us. Because every time she asks about her father, my heart breaks a little more. Because I don't know if I can trust you not to leave again, not to let Richard manipulate you into walking away from us. But she couldn't say those words. Not here, not now. Not when he was looking at her with such hope, such desperate need to reclaim what had been stolen from him. Because I spent 10 years putting myself back together, she said instead. You broke me, Daniel. Even though it wasn't your fault, even though you didn't remember, the pain was real. I built a life without you. I learned to be okay alone. I can't just tear down those walls because you suddenly want to remember. I understand, Daniel said, though his eyes showed his disappointment. But can we at least try? Can I take you to dinner? Can we talk more? I promise I'll keep Richard away from this. Asmail wanted to say yes. Every fiber of her being wanted to say yes. But she thought of Lily at home, doing her homework, waiting for her mother. Lily, who asked about her father every birthday, every Father's Day, every time she saw other kids with their dads. I need time, Jasmine said finally. This is a lot for me too. You walking back into my life after 10 years? I need to think about what it means, what I want, whether I'm ready to risk my heart again. Daniel nodded slowly. I can give you time. But Jasmine, I need you to know something. I don't care what Richard says anymore. I don't care about his approval or his plans for my life. I'm 32 years old, and I've spent the last decade feeling like something was missing. Now I know what it was. It was you. You don't know me anymore, Jasmine said softly. Then let me learn. Let me discover who you are now. Let me earn your trust back. Before Jasmine could respond, her coworker Monica appeared at the table. Jasmine, sorry to interrupt, but you have a phone call. Says it's urgent. Something about Lily. Jasmine's blood turned to ice. I have to take this. She practically ran to the phone behind the counter, her hands shaking as she picked up the receiver. Hello? Ms. Brooks, this is Principal Henderson from Oakwood Elementary. Lily is fine, but she fell on the playground and might have sprained her wrist. We think you should take her to get it checked out. I'll be right there, Jasmine said. Already untying her apron, she turned to find Daniel standing behind her, concern etched on his face. Is everything okay? Who's Lily? Jasmine looked at him. At this man who was her past and might be her future. At the father of her child who didn't know he had a child. At the love of her life who had forgotten he ever loved her. Got to go, she said. Family emergency. Can I help? Can I drive you? No, Jasmine said quickly. Too quickly. I can handle it. She grabbed her purse and rushed toward the door. But Daniel caught her arm gently. Jasmine, wait. When can I see you again? I don't know, she said honestly. I'll call you. I promise. You don't have my number. Without thinking, Jasmine recited the number she had memorized 10 years ago and never forgotten. Daniel's eyes widened in shock. How did you know that? Because I never forgot anything about you, Jasmine said. Even when I tried. Even when it would have been easier. I never forgot. She pulled away and ran to her car, leaving Daniel standing in the doorway of the diner, watching her go with questions written all over his face. The confrontation. 20 minutes later, Jasmine sat in the emergency room with Lily, whose wrist was wrapped in a temporary splint while they waited for X-ray results. Her daughter was being brave, not crying even though Jasmine could see the pain in her eyes. Does it hurt a lot, baby? Jasmine asked, smoothing Lily's dark hair. It's okay, Lily said. Mom, can I ask you something? Anything. Jenny's dad came to field day today. He ran in the 3-legged race with her, and they won. All the kids' dads were there except mine. Lily's gray eyes looked up at her mother. Why doesn't my dad want to know me? Jasmine's heart shattered. Oh, sweetheart. It's not that he doesn't want to know you. It's complicated. That's what you always say. But I'm 9 now. I'm old enough to understand complicated. Before Jasmine could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. It's Daniel. I got your number from the diner's employee list. I hope that's not too creepy. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. And to tell you that I'm not giving up on us. Whatever us means now, I want to figure it out. Jasmine stared at the message, tears blurring her vision. She looked at Lily, at her daughter's face that was so much like Daniel's, and made a decision. She typed back, We need to talk. Tomorrow, after my shift. There's something important you need to know. His response came immediately. I'll be there. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. Jasmine closed her eyes and prayed she was doing the right thing, because tomorrow she would tell Daniel Westfield that he was a father, and nothing would ever be the same again. The day everything changed, Jasmine barely slept that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, rehearsing 1,000 different ways to tell Daniel he had a daughter. Each version felt wrong. Too blunt, too soft, too defensive, too apologetic. How did you tell a man that 9 years ago you gave birth to his child while he was living a completely different life? Convinced you were nothing but a summer fling who had tried to scam him? At 6 in the morning, she gave up on sleep and made coffee. Lily padded into the kitchen in her pajamas. Her wrists now in a proper cast after yesterday's hospital visit. You're up early, Lily observed. Climbing onto a stool at the counter. Couldn't sleep, Jasmine admitted. Are you worried about something? Jasmine looked at her daughter, at those intelligent gray eyes that missed nothing. Lily, what if I told you that your father didn't know about you? That he never chose to stay away? But that circumstances kept him from knowing you existed? Lily's eyes widened. Is that true? Yes. Then why didn't you tell him about me? I tried, Jasmine said softly. But people got in the way. His family convinced him I was lying about everything. By the time you were born, he believed I had never mattered to him at all. But you did matter? Very much. We loved each other, baby. We've planned a whole life together. And then he had an accident and forgot me, and his brother made sure he stayed that way." Lily processed this information with the seriousness of someone far older than 9. "Is he here now? In Charleston? He came back a month ago. He walked into the diner 2 days ago. Does he remember you now? He's starting to. And today, I'm going to tell him about you." Lily slid off her stool and wrapped her good arm around Jasmine's waist. "What if he doesn't want me?" "Oh, sweetheart," Jasmine said, pulling her daughter close. "He's going to love you the second he meets you. How could he not? You're the best thing that ever happened to me. And you're half him. He'll see that. What if his brother tries to keep us apart again? Then we'll fight," Jasmine said fiercely. "And this time, we'll win." Truth has its day. Daniel arrived at Harbor Lights Diner at 2:30, exactly when Jasmine's shift ended. She saw him pacing outside, running his hands through his hair, checking his watch every 30 seconds. He was nervous. Good. So was she. She clocked out, grabbed her jacket, and met him outside. The September afternoon was crisp, fall beginning to assert itself over summer's lingering warmth. "Hi," Daniel said, and the single word carried the weight of everything unsaid between them. "Hi," Jasmine replied. "Let's walk." They headed toward the waterfront, falling into step beside each other. For a while, neither spoke. The silence stretched, filled with the cry of seagulls and the distant sound of boat engines. "I did some research last night," Daniel finally said. "Called some old friends from that summer. They remembered you. They remembered us. Everything you told me was true? Did you think I was lying?" "No," he said quickly. "But I needed to verify it for myself. I needed to know that my brother had really done something so horrible, and now you know. Now I know." His jaw clenched. "I'm going to confront him. I'm going to make him admit what he did." "That's not why I asked you to meet me today," Jasmine said. Daniel stopped walking and turned to face her. "Then why?" Jasmine's heart pounded so hard she thought it might break through her chest. "Because there's something else you need to know. Something Richard kept from you. Something I should have found a way to tell you years ago, but I was scared and hurt, and I didn't know how. You're scaring me, Jasmine. Remember I told you we made plans? That we talked about a future together." "Yes, we did more than talk." Jasmine took a deep breath. "The night before your accident, we were together. Really together. It was my first time, and yours too, if I remember correctly. We were young and in love, and we thought we had all the time in the world." Daniel's face showed recognition of where this was going. "Jasmine, I found out I was pregnant 6 weeks after your accident. 6 weeks after Richard had blocked all my attempts to contact you. 6 weeks after he told me you believed I was a liar and a gold digger." "No," Daniel whispered. "I was 18 years old and terrified. My grandmother was dying. I had no money, no family support, no way to reach you. I tried, Daniel. I swear to you, I tried. I showed up at your family's business in Atlanta, but security threw me out. I wrote letters that came back unopened. I called from different numbers, but Richard had you shielded from everything." Tears streamed down Daniel's face now. "Tell me, I had a baby girl," Jasmine said, her own tears flowing freely. 7 months after that night on the beach? She was premature, but healthy. Perfect. With your eyes and your smile and your kind heart. Where is she?" Daniel's voice broke on the question. "Please tell me she's okay." "She's beautiful," Jasmine said, smiling through her tears. "She's 9 years old. She's smart and funny and brave. She loves to draw, just like you did. She wants to be an architect when she grows up, even though she doesn't know that's what you studied. She asks about you all the time, Daniel. Every birthday, every Father's Day, every time she sees other kids with their dads. She wants to know why her father doesn't want to meet her." Daniel's legs seemed to give out. He sat down hard on a nearby bench, his head in his hands. "I have a daughter. Her name is Lily," Jasmine said, sitting beside him. "Lily Westfield Brooks. I gave her your last name even though Richard tried to convince me not to. Even though you didn't remember me, I wanted her to know she belonged to you. Can I meet her?" Daniel looked up at Jasmine with desperate hope. "Please, I know I have no right to ask." I know I've missed 9 years of her life, through no fault of yours. But please, Jasmine, let me meet my daughter." Father meets his child. They walked back to Jasmine's house in silence. Daniel seemed shell-shocked, alternating between wiping his eyes and staring at Jasmine like she might disappear if he looked away. "She knows about you," Jasmine said, as they approached her small blue house. "I've always told her the truth, as much of it as she could understand at different ages. She knows you didn't abandon us by choice." "But I did abandon you," Daniel said miserably. "Even if I didn't remember, even if Richard manipulated me, you were alone when you needed me most. You couldn't help what happened to you. It doesn't make it hurt less for you, or for her." They reached the front door. Jasmine paused with her hand on the knob. "She's going to be nervous, and probably shy at first. Just be patient with her." "I will," Daniel promised. "I'll be whatever she needs me to be." Jasmine opened the door. Inside, Mrs. Patterson was helping Lily with homework at the kitchen table. Lily looked up when they entered, her gray eyes going wide when she saw the man standing beside her mother. "Mrs. Patterson, thank you for staying late," Jasmine said. "Can you give us a few minutes?" The elderly woman took one look at the scene, understood immediately, and gathered her things. "Of course, dear. Lily, I'll see you tomorrow." She squeezed Jasmine's hand as she left, a gesture of support and encouragement. When the door closed, silence filled the house. Lily stared at Daniel. Daniel stared at Lily. Both of them looked terrified. "Lily," Jasmine said gently, "this is Daniel Westfield, your father." "Hi," Lily whispered. "Hi," Daniel said, his voice thick with emotion. "It's really nice to meet you. Mom said you forgot about her." "About us? I did," Daniel said, kneeling down so he was at Lily's eye level. "I had an accident that took away my memories. But even though I couldn't remember, my heart never forgot. I dreamed about your mother for 10 years without knowing who she was. And now that I know about you, I promise you, I will spend the rest of my life trying to make up for the time I lost." "Do you remember now?" Lily asked. "Some things. Not everything. But I remember loving your mother. And I already love you, even though we just met. Is that weird?" Lily considered this. "A little, but also kind of nice." Daniel laughed, a sound mixed with tears. "Can I give you a hug?" Lily looked at Jasmine, who nodded encouragingly. Then Lily walked over to Daniel and let him wrap his arms around her. He held her like she was made of glass, like he couldn't believe she was real. "You have my eyes," he whispered into her hair. "Everyone says that," Lily replied. "I didn't know who I got them from until now." They pulled apart, and Daniel noticed the cast on Lily's wrist. "What happened here?" "I fell on the playground yesterday. It's just a small fracture. The doctor said it'll heal in 6 weeks. Does it hurt?" "Not really. Mom, let me pick a purple cast. Purple's my favorite color."
Purple's a great color," Daniel said seriously.
"Very regal." Lily smiled, a small, genuine smile that made Daniel's heart swell. The brother, who destroyed everything. They spent the next 2 hours talking. Daniel asked Lily about school, her friends, what she liked to do. Lily showed him her drawings, increasingly excited as she realized he appreciated them in a way few adults did. He pointed out perspective and shading, gently teaching her techniques that made her eyes light up with understanding. Jasmine watched from the kitchen, making dinner while listening to them bond. It felt surreal. After 9 years of solo parenting, of being everything to Lily, suddenly there was someone else. Someone who looked at their daughter with the same fierce love that Jasmine felt. They were eating dinner, Lily chattering about her art teacher, when Daniel's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and his expression darkened. "It's Richard," he said. "Don't answer it," Jasmine suggested. "No, I need to." Daniel stood and walked to the porch, answering as he went. "What do you want, Richard?" Jasmine and Lily could hear his side of the conversation through the open window. "I'm busy." "No, it can't wait until tomorrow." "Because I'm with my family?" Pause. "My daughter, Richard. My 9-year-old daughter that you knew about and hid from me." Another pause, longer this time. "Don't you dare deny it. I know you paid off that doctor. I know you intercepted Jasmine's letters. I know everything. Daniel's voice rose. You robbed me of 9 years with my child. 9 years of watching her grow, of being there for her first steps and first words and first day of school. You took that from me, and I will never forgive you. Jasmine walked to the door, ready to support him if needed. I don't care about the business, Richard. I don't care about the money or the family name or any of it. I care about them. He looked at Jasmine as he said it. I care about the family I should have had all along. More arguing from Richard's end, his voice audible even through the phone. Then come here, Daniel said suddenly. Come see what you destroyed. Come look my daughter in the eye and tell her why she grew up without a father. He gave Richard the address and hung up. Turned to Jasmine with fire in his eyes. He's coming. We're ending this tonight. When secrets can no longer hide, Richard Westfield arrived 30 minutes later, driving a luxury car that looked out of place in Jasmine's modest neighborhood. He was older than Daniel by 5 years, with harder edges and colder eyes. He walked up to the house like he owned it, like he owned everything he touched. Jasmine met him at the door before he could knock. You're not welcome here. I need to speak with my brother. It's about how you destroyed our lives. About how you manipulated a vulnerable man into forgetting the woman he loved. About how you hid his daughter from him. Richard's jaw tightened. You don't understand the full situation. Then explain it to me, Daniel said, appearing behind Jasmine. Explain how any of what you did was justified. Richard pushed past them into the house, then stopped short when he saw Lily sitting on the couch. Watching him with those familiar gray eyes, his face paled. She looks just like you did at that age, he said quietly to Daniel. Don't talk to me about what she looks like. You made sure I never got to see it?